and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am, of course, Mr. Warren Hayes, and I welcome you aboard this new edition of the podcast this week. Right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. And wherever you are consuming this, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, a 5-star review, a 5-star rating, a follow, whatever you can do to show some love, I would appreciate it a great deal. It means a lot, and it does help the podcast grow when you do these little nifty little acts of kindness like that. Tonight's podcast is very simple. Most of it is dedicated to reviewing AEW Double or Nothing 2025. A great show, like a legitimately excellent show. I'm underselling it by saying great. If you want to hear the rest of what I think about it, stick around. We're going to do that. We've got a little news tidbit to start things off, but we're going to get right into it. Join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. Link is in the description. Follow me on Blue Sky as well at MrWarrenHayes.show. And look, we're just ready to go. We're just ready to go. Rolling. Thank you very much for being here. On May 22nd, WrestleNomics posted an exclusive story claiming that WrestleMania 2026 is no longer going to take place in New Orleans. I spoke about this on stream last Thursday, and I thought I'd come back here and polish off my thoughts a little since a few more details have since come to light. So why don't we start with the proper context by reading a part of the article that was written, of course, by Brendan Thurston and is available, of course, on WrestleNomics.com. Despite an announcement earlier this year, WrestleMania will not take place in New Orleans in 2026, according to a statement provided Thursday to WrestleNomics. The statement provided by the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation indicates the event is being rescheduled to a later unspecified year. New Orleans was announced as the 2026 host city in February during a segment on SmackDown featuring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, revealing the location. After this article was published, NOLA.com reported that Las Vegas would be host site of WrestleMania in 2026. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported discussions are underway for WrestleMania to take place in WWE President Nick Khan's hometown for the second consecutive year. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, which played a key role in bringing the 2025 event to the city, declined to comment in response to our inquiry about whether Las Vegas would be the location of next year's WrestleMania. Rather than WrestleMania, WWE's Money in the Bank premium live event will be held in New Orleans in 2026. That news follows the recently announced UFC 318 card, I'll get it right, set for July 19, 2025 at the Smoothie King Center in the city. The events are part of a broader, quote-unquote, multi-event, multi-year agreement being negotiated between local organizers and WWE and UFC's parent company, TKO Group Holdings. On Friday, WWE Chief Content Officer Paul Levesque announced that Money in the Bank 2026 would take place that year on August 29. In recent years, the annual event has taken place in June or July. The Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and New Orleans & Company are working closely with our friends at TKO to expand our long-standing partnership. The statement from the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation reads, which will include UFC 318 on July 19, 2025, Money in the Bank in 2026, and WrestleMania, which will move from the currently scheduled 2026 timeframe to a future year. New Orleans & Company, which is mentioned in the statement, is a marketing organization that promotes the New Orleans tourism industry. The foundation described the statement as a joint message from both their organization and WWE. WWE didn't respond to our request to confirm their agreement with the statement or provide additional comment, but later on Friday, the company acknowledged, the announcement and joint statement in Levesque's video message. So that wraps up the WrestleNomics article bit here, the context that I wanted to give you before moving on. And I'm sure at this point you've probably seen the very teleprompter read video from Trips as well. Now, just to recap, New Orleans was announced as the host city for WrestleMania for 2026 during that SmackDown segment with The Rock. I mean, you remember it, right? Dwayne comes out, drops the big news. It's a big thing, right? But then after Thurston's article, NOLA.com, an online publication dedicated to reporting news from New Orleans, comes out with a new report stating that Las Vegas is actually going to host WrestleMania in 2026 again. That would be the second year in a row. Here's the quote from the article. After the success of this year's event, the new leadership running WWE decided that they would rather hold next year's event in Las Vegas and see what response they get from fans, according to an industry official who wasn't authorized to be quoted by name. Now, of course, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the group that played the big role in getting the 2025 Mania there, hasn't responded yet, so there's no confirmation either way. Now, instead of WrestleMania, Money in the Bank is going to be held in New Orleans in 2026. So, there you go. There's your nice consolation prize. I get that they want to, slip them a little something here, but, let's be honest, it's not WrestleMania. Also, all of this comes after the announcement of UFC 318, set for July 19, 2025 at the Smoothie King Center, which is part of expanding the relationship, right? TKO doesn't need to simply leverage WWE in these circumstances now. It can do it with UFC as well. So at first, I had this theory. I was thinking maybe the reason WWE pulled out is an infrastructure thing. Venues, city setup, logistics, WWE likes to take over a whole city during WrestleMania, host smaller shows, pop-up shops, events, all that stuff, right? Maybe there was issues with that. But then my gut told me something was off with that theory, right? And I trust my gut quite a bit. I immediately debunked myself, quite frankly. If these turned out to be the issues, shouldn't that have been figured out during the negotiation phase before you go on national television to announce it with Dwayne Johnson? And it's not like New Orleans is short on theaters and venues or infrastructure to host big events. They just did it with the Super Bowl. That city knows how to host big events. So so it's weird. And ultimately, my theory didn't add up. Hell, even before we got the Vegas report, I was thinking, Saudi Arabia. Because I remembered something from earlier this year during TKO's financial call. I believe it's their CFO. They mentioned wanting to run 3 events in Saudi Arabia in 2026. But look, regardless of what it is, something for sure has changed. And the only thing that makes sense to me right now is money. Las Vegas basically showed up and offered them bigger money, bigger tax breaks, and WWE jumped out of the deal with New Orleans. And don't sit there looking stunned. You think WWE doesn't have some kind of clause in their contract that allows them to pull out with minimal penalties, especially if they have the leverage now to say, we'll come back around with Mania, but here, in the meantime, you've got Money in the Bank and UFC right there for you. WWE has never signed a contract that they didn't feel they couldn't renege on. This is nothing new, and it's especially true under the TKO mantle. Do you think they care about any traditions that may have existed in the past, like WrestleMania being a traveling show? You should all know by now that TKO's only loyalty is to money. So whoever upfronts the biggest cash incentives, tax breaks, and whatever else might be in play will get the show. They promised a Mania make good for New Orleans, but they also did that with Indianapolis, right? Minneapolis as well was also left in the lurch, and they got a 2-night SummerSlam instead of a proper make-do. New Orleans got Money in the Bank. It's a fucking apology bouquet. It's, it's something you give your girlfriend when you know you screwed up. It's a consolation prize. We'll bring back WrestleMania in a future year, they said. It's like, who believes that at this point? I'm not saying that it will never happen, just to be clear. I'm saying who believes it will? Like, if Vegas locks in a deal where WrestleMania becomes a permanent Vegas fixture, why would TKO stick to the tradition of WrestleMania going from town to town? Like, if Las Vegas or any other city, for that matter, offers a long-term financial commitment, it's entirely possible that TKO would break with decades of tradition and plant WrestleMania in one location for years. It might even be the easiest way to continue to monetize the shit out of Mania by having it become a residency. And Vegas is already TKO's city. They have the contacts, the connections, the infrastructure. It all makes sense. And I was listening to the flagship this weekend, and Rich Craich talked about reports suggesting that Las Vegas has been struggling with tourism despite continued interest in gambling itself. Mainly because people no longer need to go to Vegas if they want to gamble or bet. What with online betting, and the opening of more and more casinos across the country. So a high-profile weekend like WrestleMania offers a predictable injection of foot traffic into the city and attention, and makes it a smart gamble for the city, especially during Easter weekend. Like, this WrestleMania, which was clearly a success, was run over Easter weekend. If they do the same thing next year and run it the same weekend, well, a weekend that is slow for Vegas, well, of course Vegas becomes motivated. And TKO is motivated by the highest bidder, So here's the one thing you have to keep in mind, and it's crucial that we all do moving forward. Basically, in other words, here's your takeaway. For WWE in the TKO era, the only real principle that they have is return on investment. Everything else, from city partnerships to fan expectations, is negotiable, delayable, or just outright discardable. It is now time to review AEW Double or Nothing 2025, which took place on May 25th, 2025. There's a lot of 25s going on here. From the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, in the shadow of Phoenix, Arizona, right? I think Excalibur brought it up. I think it was during wasn't it during the pre-show? I think. I'm pretty sure. It said, okay, you're in the vicinity of the bigger city that you would like to be in, but for multiple reasons you're not. But it's like in the shadow of New York, in the shadow of Hollywood. You're in Inglewood. What are you doing? All right. Focus, Warren. We're already sidebarring here, and we're not even like a proper minute into this review. Look, you know exactly, if you follow my work, you know exactly what I'm going to say here. This was an excellent pro wrestling show. This was an all-timer. This was great. Once again, the surest value in professional wrestling today is an AEW pay-per-view. Just to get any great evening of pro wrestling, AEW delivers every single time. Remember there was an era a few years ago where it was the NXT takeovers. You remember that? There's like you could choose to not watch the weekly on the network, but you would jump in to these NXT takeovers, these NXT takeovers back in the day, and you'd be in for a fantastic time, just consistently great pay-per-views. And AEW is exactly in this mode, and they've been in this mode for a while. And we may have little dips in quality like we had with Dynasty, but even there, like Dynasty was not a horrible pay-per-view. It was just like unusually average for AEW, right? That was the thing. It was just like, it's a good little show. But when you're used to having great shows and then they turn into excellent shows, well, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Like, how are you supposed to react to all of this? It's been AEW's MO from the start of the year this year, and we're continuing down this path. Just another excellent show where everything connected, everything hit. I feel there was a little something for everyone. There was, there was the hardcore wrestling. You had a little sports entertaining stuff is sprinkled in there, and well, and then you had the high drama. There was a bit of it, and there was a bit of everything in the envelope, and within the envelope contained just great pro wrestling throughout. For what it's worth, with my own little dopey star ratings and whatnot, I have 2 match of the year candidates on this show. I have 2 match of the year candidates, and my lowest rated match is a 3. That's the match I disliked the most. I still was like, this is not bad. It's fine. It's good. It's a good little match. If that's your floor, and your ceiling is, I've got multiple match of the year candidates from this show. Well, we're eating good. You know what I mean? And it's a demonstration as well. And I think we'll try to make this evident as we break down the card. This is a show that only All Elite Wrestling can put on. And this is a theme that I speak on multiple times here on the podcast, on stream. AEW is legitimately at its best, at its strongest, when it understands that what it offers pro wrestling is different from its competitors, and they cannot be touched on that level because none of them can do what they do, or choose not to at the very least. And yes, WWE, but I'm also talking about New Japan. I'm talking about CMLL. I'm talking about, AAA. I'm talking about them all. TNA. None of them can create this type of event with the depth of roster, the amount of just pure talent, putting on extraordinary matches on a grand scale. I mean, because, we're running in front of thousands of people. It's a big production. It's a big to-do. It is a grand scale. No one can touch them. No one can do this. No one can do what AEW does. And I sincerely believe that since the start of the year, let's say the end of 2024, but particularly since the start of 2025, AEW has figured out, or at least has embraced a mantle at the very least, where it understands now that all it can do is be different, and be different in the best possible way. Do things that the others can't do, and they will shine because they have the talent who endorses that and who is ready to push forward in that vision. Maybe there was a time not that long ago that there was talent on board who were not on board and who saw the approach to pro wrestling in a different way. But as you all know, there have been departures, releases, folks exiting the company throughout multiple months. And it all seems to have lifted something. It feels like there is some sort of cohesion amongst the locker rooms, men and women, where everyone is just like focused on putting on the best possible pro wrestling show. And a vision, or at least, dare we call it a vision? Bear with me here. A vision that a lot of people seem to be endorsing. A vision that people are embracing. And if you have people who are, sourpusses about stuff and are making things complicated or whatever, well, maybe it was a good idea to get rid of all of these elements that were maybe weighing things down. Maybe some of which we knew very well were weighing things down. Others that maybe were weighing down more than we expected. And in this vision where AEW focuses on not being like its competition, it keeps the eye on the prize. It keeps their eye on working to put on just excellent professional wrestling shows like this. And we are going to talk about some. But before we do, quick little business side of things. According to WrestleTix, and these are not the final numbers yet. I'm recording this on May 27. We still don't have the final count. But from 2 days ago, on May 25th itself, the last count that WrestleTix provided had 8,179 tickets distributed for the show. They had set up earlier for like 7,500, I believe, something like that, and they blew through. They blew through that. They even made the setup up for. They changed the setup in the last couple of days for 8,697. So there was clearly a renewed interest when things started becoming very crystal clear in regards to who was going to be on top and whatnot, and a well built show with good feuds that are compelling, that are interesting, a main event that is captivating, that people are into. Well, this is kind of the stuff that happens. You get closer to the show date, people start moving in. Look, we know this is a pattern that's been existent for AEW shows for a while now. You don't have to buy your tickets on the day of sale. You wait till you get closer to the event, and you can usually get some pretty good deals, right? This was still the thing. Apparently the cheapest ticket was around $33, but the thing here is that they packed in over 8,000 people, when I think a lot of us were assuming that they wouldn't make it over 8,000, which is great. And compared to last year's Double or Nothing, where they had from the MGM Grand Garden Arena, they had 9,099 paid tickets according to Polestar. So it's different markets at the same time. Yeah, completely different markets to come into the show here, which was, and since we're doing comps, entirely superior from last year as well. But I didn't think Double or Nothing last year was anything great. I think if my memory serves me correctly, I believe I thought this was one of AEW's weakest pay-per-view offerings of all time. And now we've completely flipped it around and have it's the complete opposite this year. It's like one of the greatest pay-per-views AEW has put on. It's right up there. It's one of the top ones. Anyway, let's get into the show. Let's start this off breaking everything down. And I think what we're going to do, the way we're going to do it, is we're going to talk about my 3 favorite matches first. I just want the good vibe, the energy, starting the recording energy for the big matches that I really, 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 really liked, and that there's a lot to, particularly in one match, there's a lot of things to break down. And then move on from there, and then we'll go back to the rest of the card if you're all okay with that. And the first match we're going to talk about is, of course, going to be the main event, where Hangman Adam Page defeated Will Ospreay in the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Finals. Now, I feel if you enjoyed this match, and if you enjoyed Jamie Hayter versus Mercedes Moné, I believe that this is entirely due to the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament 2025, which I think is inarguable, is the greatest, the best Owen Hart Foundation tournament to date. It was good from start to finish. And let's go back for a second here. If we think about the men's side here, there were no slouches in this tournament on the men's side, right? You had Ospreay and Hangman, of course. You had Kevin Knight. You had Brody King. You had Takeshita, Fletcher, Mark Briscoe. You had Josh Alexander, making his debut. That is a star-studded lineup for your knockout single elimination tournament, and it carried to the very end. That's like a stellar cast to kick this off. Now, if we go on the women's side, well, maybe there were a couple of instances here that felt that you were like, oh, well, I see where this is going, right? If we start from round one, right? Because you've got Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, Mercedes Moné, Athena. You look at this and you say to yourself, okay, right then and there, these are the semifinalists right there. These are the semifinalists. I know this is what's going to happen. So you could throw Thunder Rosa in there as well. I'd want, Thunder Rosa should be in that mix as well. You're like, okay, this is a good mix of women. Billy Starks, you knew she wasn't going forward. You knew Harley Cameron wasn't going forward. And, maybe Julia Hart, but you're like, she's starting off against Mercedes Moné in the first round. You're like, no. She says, no, that's fine. Thank you for playing Julia, but that's not how it's going to work, right? So even despite some predictable outcomes from the first round, this was a tremendous pay-per-view. This was a tremendous tournament for both sides, and the drama carried with some great matches, of course, and it was given enough television time and importance for people to get behind their favorites and root for them. And that led to the finals, which happened 2-3 weeks after the semifinals were held, something like that. So it wasn't one of these AEW rush jobs that we often get, where it's like, we get the finals on Wednesday, and then maybe we'll get another final we'll get the semifinals on Wednesday, and then the other semifinals on Saturday, and then Sunday it's the pay-per-view. One of these. No, this time, this tournament was given room to breathe. The semifinals took place. We had our finalists set, and we had 2 or 3 weeks, I can't quite remember, of just build, of creating tension, of building towards the match, which is brilliant. It's Jesse Collins was pointing this out to me and saying it's like the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl finishes, the regular season ends, and you've got 2 weeks to build and hype the Super Bowl. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is an encapsulation of that, where things were just given room to grow for these big finals, for both on the men and the women's side, so that ultimately whoever wins the women's and men's tournaments indeed feels like big time number one contenders to challenge for their respective world titles at the biggest stadium show of the year for the promotion. So to me, if you like these matches as much as I did, if you thought they were as good as they were, yes, of course, there is the raw talent of the 4 people involved in these 2 final matches that account for a substantial amount of it. But the build, getting us to this place, and then creating this anticipation of whoever wins goes to All In to challenge Moxley or Tony Storm. And it's almost as if giving stakes, big time stakes, is important. This is unquestionably the best Owen Hart Foundation tournament to date. I'll repeat it again. And talent, of course, but the maturity in this booking here, the confidence also in this booking to say we're going to do the tournament, we're going to do all the knockout rounds, and then when we get to the finals, we're just going to pull back and we're going to let our talent speak. We're going to let our talent build. We're going to let them do the work. That's a sign of maturity in booking, of confidence in booking, in what they're doing, and in who they've entrusted into these spots. That has a lot to do with it. So for this guy here, if these matches were as successful as they were, a non-negligible amount of that is due to how great the Owen Hart tournament was built. I sincerely believe that. Because like I said, we get to the matches, they feel big. They feel big time. They feel big time because the tournament is carrying us to a place where we are going to create two big time challengers for the titles at a big time show. And I cannot imagine a better way to pay tribute to Owen Hart than to have his namesake tournament be a big time catalyst to the main event of the biggest show of the year for AEW. AEW needs to continue this trend, and this tournament will feel big, will feel important. Everyone will feel like it's significant to be a part of it, that you're just not winning a goofy belt that no one ever wears, that you just pull out for a photo op and that's it. Then it's back into storage until next year. Like, who cares about that? It's what you do with it within the story, within the promotion. This is a blueprint for what to do for the next few years to continue to make All In feel important. One of the discussions we had a couple of years ago when All In started, when I say we, a lot of us, right? A lot in media, a lot of people were criticizing AEW for not making the original All In Wembley feel big time, and to a degree, AEW still struggles to really make their big time shows feel big time. Of course, we're comparing to how billion-dollar company WWE does it, but nonetheless, I think there is a fair amount of criticism to be levied there. But if they wanted to do this every year, if they bring this same energy, foresight to the Owen Hart tournament every year, leading into Double or Nothing, leading into All In, then you've got a tremendous promotional vehicle to get your big event feel bigger. You'll never have a Royal Rumble, but maybe you'll have an Owen Hart Cup Foundation tournament. Anyway, let's circle back around. Let's talk about the main event itself now. What a tremendous, dramatic, physically intense match. Like, it was absolutely remarkable, the work that these guys pulled off in this match. Dramatic, but also when I say physical, I mean they were working very, 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 very snug. Particularly Hangman. Hangman has no issues working a little stiff. He's fine with that, and I'm fine with that too, because it adds so much to the match. And Will is completely fine with that too, and he can throw. He's completely okay with that. And what you had here was something that legitimately did feel like an emotional fight. Everything in this match clicked. Everything worked. Couple of highlights. That flash buckshot lariat that Hangman Page did from the corner. Like he did that a couple of weeks ago, right? In the tag team match where he did a buckshot lariat just like off of the corner turnbuckle. I was like, holy shit, what? Excuse me? And he did it here again. Will Ospreay does a great shooting star press onto a rope hung Adam Page, who also Adam Page does a great, beautiful tombstone reversal. He reverses, I can't quite remember, but into a tombstone. And I wrote down here, beautiful reversal into a tombstone by Hangman Adam Page. I mean, I didn't write down the movie was reversing out to, but you know. And then Will does a Styles Clash off the apron, which I'm like, this is unnecessary, but we went and did it anyway. And it led to a really interesting little moment in the match too, where Page barely beats the 10 count. Like he barely makes it into the ring. So Ospreay is great at this, right? Once you get back into the ring, he's right back on top of you. He's not leaving you time to breathe or get back up on your feet. He just goes right for it, hits a Nos cutter, hidden blade, covers, Hangman kicks out, and then Ospreay gets a little hot. He loses his cool, and he starts palm striking Hangman, like with the ball of his palm here, and he's a little erratic at it, and he's getting hot at the ref. I'm like, oh, and that was a nice little thing that we're not used to seeing out of Ospreay, but you could tell, he was not necessarily in control. You could tell that from at this point here, his game plan wasn't working. The things that should be working aren't, and he's mad. He's just now he's just flailing, and ultimately, maybe you could make an argument, if you wanted to make an interpretation of how this match went down, you can make an interpretation here that his emotions got the best of him, and that's all there is to it. He just lost his cool, and his feelings just took over, and this ultimately hampered him for the rest of the match. Of course, there's the table spot, right? The commentary table spot that collapses before Hangman can hit the dead eye, which was extremely scary. It was scary, folks. I did not like that. Warren did not like that. No one. It could have been a lot worse. But look, these guys got back up, dusted themselves off, and they redid the spot. I mean, what do you want? Clearly, it was an important spot for the story of the match. But there you go. It's fine. Get back in the ring. They start kicking out of each other's finishers, out of a buckshot lariat, out of a stormbreaker. And Will around this time hits a horrifying hidden blade. And I mean like a disgusting one. And that's what's great about this move, is that Will always does it in a way where he protects the other guy. But that's what's great about the hidden blade, and the way Will does it, is that it looks like the most devastating move in pro wrestling. But it's actually really cleverly done. Then they pull out their greatest adversaries moves. Ospreay teases the one-winged angel. Hangman Adam Page with Swerve's big pressure. And finally, after more back and forth and exciting exchanges, Hangman gets a final buckshot, covers, and gets the pin, to a huge reaction from the crowd. So this sets up Hangman Adam Page versus Jon Moxley at All In Texas. So the Hangman fans will have to live with their crippling anxiety for another 40-some days before we can finally get a resolution. And then, even if Hangman wins, the Hangman fans are still going to be anxious. The next thing, mark my words, the next thing the Hangman fans are going to be worried about once Hangman wins, because it's not a question of if, it's a question of once. Once he wins at All In, the anxiety that they're going to live with will surround the length of Hangman's reign. Oh, is he going to lose it 2 months in? Oh, is it, the first time he's going to face MJF for the title, because this has been set up. Sorry to say, this has been set up. I don't know if you recall, just recently there was a very good Hangman Adam Page MJF match not that long ago. I don't know if you realize that that's the catalyst here, and MJF is going to come around on this one. But then, can you imagine the anxiety? Because a lot of the Hangman fans, they don't like Max. They really don't. Not necessarily in a heel way, in a I don't like this guy way. So they're going to get anxious with that. They're going to get anxious. Look, I think you're a Hangman fan. I think you're just, you just live with anxiety. I think that's just, that's your thing. I think that's your thing. Because immediately after, everyone's talking about, oh, now is he going to win it all in, right? That's the thing. There's no way he's not going to at this point. There's no way he's not. The direction for Hangman at this point is clear. He's on a redemption arc. He's redeeming himself for losing his way and being, a maniac, essentially, over the course of his feud with Swerve. And he lost his way, and he lost his smile, literally. And now they're slowly positioning, it's like bring the belt back. That's what Ospreay's been saying. I want to bring the belt back because it's been locked up in a briefcase. Even Ospreay has set this up for him. He's going to be AEW's savior. He's going to lift everything back out of the dark era of the Death Riders, and he's going to be the hero. We keep saying it here on the show. He's the protagonist of AEW. He's the main character. He always has been. I always fucking say, what do I always say when it comes to the Hangman? Hangman's going to be fine. Been saying this for years. There's one guy in this company whose booking is always going to be fine and safe, and he will always have a spot. It is Hangman Adam Page. I don't know why people are so anxious and upset about it. He's the guy. He's the main character, even if he's not world champion. Sometimes the lead superhero goes off on a side quest. He goes on another arc, some character development to come back. And this is what it is. I was not worried. Right up until last week's Dynamite, when they had their final, they being Ospreay and Hangman. Right up until they both had their final confrontation in the ring, their final face-to-face, I should say. I was very much a proponent for Will Ospreay. And on that moment, I was like, oh no, it becomes clear to me. Now I can see the vision. Hangman's winning. They put so much emphasis on Hangman being the guy, his history. Like, no, there's no way that he's walking out of Double or Nothing as a loser. There's just no way. There was too much emphasis put on his redemption, his story, so on and so forth. Ospreay said a lot of great things and had a very fiery promo, but it wasn't as actionable or compelling than the Hangman did. I thought this was great. I thought it was great, and it led into this, and it just reaffirmed this idea that Hangman is fine, and that AEW is that AEW's main character is Hangman. And this is all in a vibe where I feel AEW, since the start of this year, has been giving the fans exactly what they want. They want Kenny Omega back on TV doing Kenny Omega things. They want MJF to be a dastardly heel, like a good dastardly heel, so we can boo him, right? And now we're circling back around. They started. I even said it, like they're giving us babyface Hangman back, and now not only that, now they're putting him in top spots, right? I know it's been a bumpy ride with stuff that maybe people didn't initially care about. Adam Copeland in the world title picture. Can't say I'm very excited about. Can't say it excited me either. But there. Yeah, and some people will argue the Death Riders, and to a degree, I also am with you. I'm not sure the Death Riders were necessarily the best thing that existed in AEW, but I feel like on a high level with wrestlers, personalities that AEW fans naturally gravitate to, guys who are easily identifiable as fan favorites. AEW has been leaning more into them. And you know, the return of the multi-man matches, right? The Young Bucks coming back and having like these bonkers, you know, cuckoo crazy party matches, you know, week in, week out. Like, this is the stuff that a lot of people missed about AEW, and it's coming back. It's making a comeback. People feel good about it. There's a good vibe around AEW right now. So it makes sense, even on that level, for Hangman to move forward. It all makes sense. It all makes sense with these observations that I've been making since the start of the year, essentially. So it'll be Moxley and Page at All In. You know, the Death Riders, right? It's the clash of everything that the fans love about AEW versus everything that they hate. Now, you know, I've been very ambivalent. Like, my feelings about the Death Riders have been a bit of a roller coaster. I've went up high. It's dipped and whatnot. I, like most everyone else, was very intrigued when this angle started off with the suffocation death of Bryan Danielson, and tried to understand what kind of direction we were going with this, and it felt a little scattered. It felt directionless. They wanted to create this. They wanted to create this all-encompassing big angle where everyone was going to be compelled to want to see the Death Riders go away, because the Death Riders wanted to tear everything down to reshape it in their own image. And I was like, well, yes, let them do it. You know, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I think it would have been compelling if from the get-go, like, the top stars of the company were involved. But no, we got the geeks involved. And that took a lot of wind out of the sails for the Death Rider angle and the direction they wanted to go in. You know, no disrespect to Orange Cassidy. I will never have any disrespect towards Orange Cassidy, but he was never perceived as a top guy. And for him to be the leader of the resistance, or whatever you wanted to call it at the time, was a little bit of nonsense. And even the Adam Copeland stuff, at first, very turned off about it, but they did manage. And I know this is not a popular opinion, because, you know, for some reason, you know, the Death Riders still come off as something toxic and people hate, when in fact, I think that they were able to pivot the Death Riders angle from being something very bad and toxic for the company, some legitimate go-away heat, to wrestling heat, just to a degree where you're like, I want to see these people get their ass kicked. And I think they did a really good job rehabilitating it throughout the Adam Copeland angle, where the Death Riders started showing ass, essentially, ended up staying on top. But, you know, nonetheless, I think the feud with the Ops was, with the Ops and everything leading into Anarchy in the Arena, was terrific. I don't know why people didn't like that. I thought it was terrific. The little stint with Swerve was fun. Were matches high quality, you know, was the Adam Copeland match a great match? No. Was the Swerve Strickland John Moxley main event, was that, like, you know, a memorable main event? No, it wasn't. It was fine. It was fine, but don't get me wrong, and it fell into all sorts of pitfalls and whatnot, but we're not revisiting that. But yet, in these builds and the way things have been going, they've returned. They've brought back the Death Riders from being on the brink and brought it into something that makes a lot more sense. Now, instead of being, you know, some cult-like version of the NWO, which probably was the, you know, somewhere around the original vision, they spun this around, and now they're just like a heel stable of really nasty, annoying bastard heels. And ultimately that's cool. So for Hangman, the protagonist, to defeat Jon Moxley at All In is perfect. It's perfect. The top heel group who've been running roughshod, doing whatever they want, injuring people out, so on and so forth. It just works. It is the perfect payoff. It is the absolute perfect payoff. Now, I know there are some people who are still married to the idea that it has to be Darby Allin, the guy who absolutely has to take the title away from Moxley because he threw him down some stairs and told him he'd never be champion. And I don't disagree in principle. I don't disagree. It's a fantastic angle, right? Because just to give you some context, I've seen this debate show up. I've seen people come up and say, no, it can't be Hangman at All In. It has to be Darby. I'm like, really? Because it doesn't have to be. No, it really does not have to be Darby Allin. It makes sense. It makes absolute sense. And if we were running this, like, I don't know, a couple of months after the stairs incident, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, we're onto something here. But Darby wanted to go climb a mountain. He wanted to do it, and all the more power to him. It's a spectacular feat on his part. Don't get me wrong. But he wanted to climb the mountain, plant a flag up there. That's what he wanted to do. So he took the time off to do it. Tony said yes. If Tony wanted this idea to come to fruition, he would have said, no, brother, stay here. Or maybe, he's still hanging on to that idea for Darby. Maybe he is. Or he was, I should say. But the fact is, during his mountain climb, there are people who have continued on these stories and have been getting themselves over and getting these angles over. And Tony has been booking as if Darby Allin is not there either. And everyone that he has been elevating, promoting, and making feel bigger and like Hangman, for instance, is just a natural extension of the fact that Darby's not around. And if Hangman is getting himself over and the moment is now, this is the moment where you have to pull the trigger, you pull the trigger. And it sucks for Darby, but he missed his window of opportunity because he wanted to go climb a mountain. But the fact is this, there has been evolution and development all throughout the promotion, particularly, of course, with Hangman, in the lead up to where we are right now, in a post Double or Nothing 2025 world. Things have been built a certain way. Things feel hot. Promotion is on a good vibe. Fans are getting excited again. And all of this is happening without Darby Allin being around. And no disrespect to Darby. I think Darby is an important component of the AEW of AEW in general. But my point is that all of this great stuff that people are excited about is all happening without Darby being around. And that's by choice. So Darby's window of opportunity for defeating Jon Moxley for the world title, I think it's closed. Because things continued to evolve and develop, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. He wanted to go climb his mountain. If he had stuck around, we'd probably be having an entirely different conversation, and there'd probably be a lot more debate to be had. We probably wouldn't even be in this same spot. We could absolutely argue that. But he went off and climbed Mount Everest. In the meantime, the rest of the promotion keeps chugging along. The fans chug along as well, and they're invested. They have to get invested. You have to keep the fans invested, and they're invested. Which doesn't mean Darby Allin can't come back and challenge Jon Moxley to a fight, but it's not going to be for the world title. It shouldn't be. I think, look, unlike how I felt with the Will Ospreay Hangman Page match that we just had, which was very polarizing, had separated the fan base into two camps, right? Where you had, the Ospreay fans and the Hangman fans. Unlike this match, with this circumstance, I personally feel like it could have gone either way, and AEW would have survived. It would have been fine. There might have been, a wave of discontent from the Hangman fans, which are very loud and anxious, as we know. But, but it would have subsided. It would have absolutely subsided. But if Hangman loses, in my opinion, if Hangman loses at All In, now that's a revolt. Like, you legitimately risk a revolt. People saying, that's it, we're good, I'm shutting this down. And no amount of Darby Allins are going to save you after this. Now AEW has created this situation, I believe, that anyone else winning the world championship off of Jon Moxley, then Hangman Adam Page, specifically at All In now, is going to be a bad decision. It has to be the Hangman. At this point, they created this for themselves. It has to be Hangman. And Darby can come back and have a nice little feud with Mox and the Death Riders, or whatever, whatever's going to happen after that. I don't know. I think it's the best thing to do. It's really a situation where it's really a situation where you can't go, oh, it'll be next time for Hangman. Not at this point. Now the fans, the Hangman fans, and I think AEW fans in general, they're all ready to accept Hangman Page as the champion. Like, right now, he feels like the guy. He feels hot. He's on top of the world. It's working right now. It's working. And they've got a month and a half to build this. It can only go up from here. I'm very confident. I'm very confident that this is what they're going to do. They cannot not do this. They cannot not have Jon Moxley lose the title to Hangman Adam Page at All In. This scenario, if this is not what happens, it might be, if it does not happen, it might go down in history as one of the most egregious booking decisions ever made, depending on the aftermath, the results. And look, like I said, AEW is in a year, I feel so far, that has been serving its fans well, has been listening, and has been delivering. We just have to continue down that path. That's all they have to do, really. They just have to continue down that path. Anyway, that's my full thoughts on all this. But the match, to just circle quickly back to the match, a great match. It's a 5-star match for me. It's a match of the year. I thought it was tremendous. And then there's a lot of implications after, which makes it all the more exciting. So there you go. The other match I want to talk about, since we're talking about my favorite matches of the night, might as well go with the other Owen Hart Foundation tournament final, where Mercedes Moné defeated Jamie Hayter. This opened the show, and what a fucking match to open the show. Again, like, not unlike the main event. Physical and snug. Working really, really, really snug. And I enjoyed this tremendously. I thought Jamie Hayter was so good here. And this was the match that I was missing since her injury return, where I was like, there she is. That's the one. There, because we knew beforehand that Jamie Hayter was a great pro wrestler. We knew this because she had great matches in this company before getting hurt. And it stalled her, it stalled everything. It stalled her career, whatnot. And then she comes back, and everyone's excited, but we just didn't have that confirmation that Jamie Hayter was, the Jamie Hayter was still there. And holy smokes, this one here convinced me that she is back. She was so good. And Mercedes was great too. I don't want to seem like I'm underselling Mercedes Moné, but every time we talk about Mercedes Moné, we always talk about how just naturally great she is. So, it's kind of redundant, but she was great here again. Hayter, it was just like it was rekindling with an old friend. It was like, yes, there she is. It was a good physical fight focused on Hayter's back, which wasn't like out of the, it wasn't a focus on the back where she oversold, it was like, my back, and always clutching the, her lower back. No, it was like, it was more of a crafty. It was craftier than that. Some great strikes. They're in and out of submission moves. There's just all sorts of great sequences between the two. And Monet counters the haterade, the short arm clothesline into what I sincerely believe was just intended to be a roll up, but the way Mercedes did it, she spiked Hayter right on the top of her crown and got the win. And if it was an accident, I think Mercedes should try to find a way to make that her finisher as opposed to the Money Maker. That's what it's called, right? Which is a bit of a goofy finish, and one that, doesn't always look good because a lot of the wrestlers she uses it on don't know how to land it. Because look, it happens. It happens sometimes that finishers just happen. That finishers are developed out of accidents, out of botches to a degree, right? Like famously Drew McIntyre's Claymore. It was just a whiffed kick that didn't work the way he intended, and he decided to keep it. He thought it looked good. I mean, if she can perfect it and not hurt anyone, that's fine, right? I think she should give it a shot. The build to this match on top of it, I thought was incredible. I thought it was really good, particularly last week, on Dynamite last week, when they had their face-to-face, and Jamie Hayter was extraordinary. We talked about it on the Dynamite review here. She was absolutely extraordinary. Just a killer promo that actually got me hype for the match. Even though I knew that there was no logical way for Mercedes Moné to not win, for Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm to not happen at All In. It created just enough of oomph for me to get excited and be like, okay, well, there's some fire to this match. I'm excited about it. And Jamie wrestled in a way to make us doubt the whole way, to make sure that we understood this was going to be a struggle, not a cakewalk for Moné. She was going to fight. She was going to wrestle. And she did. They both did. 20 plus minutes, I believe, to open up the show. And just a terrific way. What a terrific, excellent match to kick things off. I'm going to tell you, Jamie Hayter back in the mix is what we need. And I mean seriously back in the mix. She over the past couple of weeks, she's just been too good. Continue to let herself showcase. Continue to let her showcase herself. That's what in these ways here, by pulling great matches and by having these extraordinary, explosive promos on television, just like bonkers. She can't be tossed away now. She can't be just like relegated back, she can't be relegated away back into a closet until it's the next time we need to pull her out. You can't. And if it means putting more women's wrestling matches on AEW television, oh gee willikers, then go ahead and do it. Because right now, like I legitimately believe, I sincerely believe that the AEW women's roster right now has never been this good. It has such an amazing amount of depth. We're getting into embarrassment of riches territory here. Between these two women and Toni and Willow and Statlander, these are women that you can heat up and put into top spots at any given moment, just in a blink of an eye. And you've got, a terrific undercard as well. And these women work great wrestling matches. These women work tremendous wrestling matches. Great North American women's wrestling happens in AEW. And I do want women's wrestling to get a bigger, better spot than it's had forever, really, And I know that a lot of this will come, a lot of this happens, and I know fans have a tendency to celebrate when there are more matches, more people being featured, and so on and so forth. Just like, you see the numbers for NXT, they have women's matches all the time, so on and so forth. And you're like, oh, that's great, it's great. But I want quality, and we don't talk enough about quality. We're always focused on quality, right? This is what most defenders of women's wrestling do, out there. They'll calculate the screen time, the number of matches, and so on and so forth, which are interesting and important metrics, don't get me wrong. But ultimately what counts is the quality. Like, is what you're watching worthwhile? 4-minute matches between two NIL students on NXT, is like, okay, well, yes, it is a women's match, but what came out of this is not something that got me going, if that makes sense. And I wish we could have this nuance in regards to the quality of the matches. The quantity is one thing, and yes, I sincerely believe that we are in a spot right now with AEW that you could have more women on TV. You could have more women on Dynamite and Collision having some excellent matches because you have the wrestlers to pull it off. You absolutely do. Just like we saw here. But it can't always be a question of, hitting the stopwatch and saying, great job, look at this 44 minutes of women's wrestling tonight. But was it any good? I don't know. I can't be the only person who thinks that, it's like, it's one thing to have more women, but is it good? Is what we're getting quality? Is it interesting? Is it fun? Is it high level? And I don't know who else I don't know who else could have pulled off such a great match as we had here between these two women. I really don't. I don't know who could have done it. Because Mercedes Moné is on such a run. She's still on this excellent run. Maybe one misstep, like one legitimate match where you're like, that wasn't great. But since the fall, she's been on this incredible run. And Mercedes Vardano, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever you want to call her, she has always been this good. Now, maybe not this good, but she has always been good. And now she's legitimately great. If she's not the greatest if she's not the greatest North American women's wrestler of all time, I want you to tell me who. I had this discussion recently. It's like, who? Who if it's not her? It's a very, very interesting challenge. Because all of the references you may have, you'll always find something where you're like, well, she didn't have the skill. She didn't have the star power. She didn't have the impact on the industry. She wasn't a draw, a television draw, a merch draw. I legitimately challenge anyone to find me another woman in the sport of professional wrestling who is an overall better pro wrestler than Mercedes Moné. It's not as easy as you think. It's really not it's not as easy as because everyone goes, her, the greatest? Okay, who else? And I'm not just talking about this recent stretch of matches, right? I'm talking about the body of her career. She has had great matches all throughout her career, in WWE as well. Proven star. She has an impact. She is an influence on an entire generation of female wrestlers. And she has excellent pro wrestling. She's the most well-rounded women's wrestler out there. I don't know. Food for thought. Food for thought. Tremendous match. 4.5 stars. I love this match. Then the other match that I really fucking liked was the Anarchy in the Arena match, which no surprise. Talking about it, when I was talking about it in the lead up to all of this, I was like, diminishing returns with the Anarchy in the Arena. And I felt the diminishing returns last year. I had enjoyed quite a bit the Anarchy in the Arena matches. I really liked the first one. It was a match of the year for me. Last year, I didn't even consider it. I was like, it's heavy-handed. I don't know. It was lacking something. This year, they reignited this formula. They figured something out. This was an extremely fun party match where if you were in attendance for this, you probably had the time of your life. This looked like a blast to see live. Despite all the chaos going around, all the shit happening, I love this. The embodiment of a chaos match with stuff happening everywhere and everyone getting spots. Everyone getting their spots and the spots looking good and coming across great on television was just phenomenal stuff. Like, it was well produced. It was smartly put together. It was full of surprises. It was brutal. It had some extraordinary spots. You had Kenny Omega flying off of shit and then putting, what was it? Was it Matt Jackson? Putting Matt Jackson through exploding tables. And I think it was Nick who did a swan dive off of the stage through a table or something, and he bonked his head really bad. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, no. He seemed okay. You get Hook showing up, and to sort of help out his boys, but he also goes away. Establishing tension. Again, something that I talked about in previous reviews where I'm like, Hook comes back and he's going to be a little pissed off that they won the trios titles, then they inducted Hobbs into the group without asking him, and Hook and Hobbs, they have history, one thing will lead to another, and they set the tone there. This is the guy, look, I tried taking notes for this. I tried to, there's so much stuff happening here. Let me try and work through some things. Okay, look, what if we talk about the structure here? The match starts and they're doing, they have the Bucks come out, I believe at the end, at last, I should say, and they're dressed in, they're dressed in founding fathers garb of the United States. The United States founding father. They look like Paul Revere. Okay? That's essentially it. And they're playing a military, a Revolutionary War. The War of Independence. A battle theme, with the drums and the flute and whatnot. And they come to the ring and they're in their getup, which they keep for the entire match, by the way. I thought they were going to take it off, but they didn't, which was equally tremendous. And the music continues to play as they start fighting. And I'm like, oh, this is so cringe. Don't tell me they're going to do this. Already, the music is I'm not sure. Because they did it that one year with Mox's theme, with the Wild thing. They did it 1 year, which which was really, really fun. And then they've been doing it every year since. I'm like, you don't have to do it every year. And they're doing it again this year. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really cringe. But then they switch up the music for the Pointer Sisters. And I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I am one of those who was not bothered by the use of I'm so excited by the Pointer Sisters for that one episode of Dynamite. So I'm like, I was laughing as okay, Tony is never going to let it. He's never going to let us live that down. he's just going to keep shoving that into our faces. And I thought that was great. But no, then Kenny Omega comes and he says, well, how about we listen to some old alternative rock? It's like, God, he's so corny, but it's also so great, you know? And then you have Bodies by Drowning Pool that hits, and the entire audience starts bouncing. Well, the entire whole swaths of the audience start bouncing up and down, and then things pick up, and then you're like, okay, the vibe is here now. Now it's not just like cutesy cuckoo stuff. No, we're fighting. Now this is going to be violent. Now the bodies are going to start hitting the floor, which was tremendous. Like this was, and it set the tone in such a fantastic way. And even I myself, who am not a big fan of new metal, which I believe, which I believe this song is considered to be. I was like, okay, this kind of rocks. This is actually fun. I mean, there's so much cool stuff that happens in this match that most of us have forgotten about. The cardboard road cases. Remember those? When Mox gets speared through, right? Wasn't it Powerhouse Hobbs who spears Mox through road cases, but they're all made of cardboard? And I'm getting flashbacks of the crash pad for that one, for the blood and guts match. I'm like, oh no, just don't do it. But we all forgot about it. We don't give a shit at this point because the rest of the match was so cool. Willow with the earlobe thing, that was funky as hell. You know, the Bucks do their new rope hung springboard, you know, body slam thing, or body splash, as say. They do that, but through a table, which was fantastic. And everyone is just fighting all over the place. And we get a forklift involved. There's a guy driving a forklift. Yeah, good on AEW for not letting their pro wrestlers drive a forklift. Usually when pro wrestlers drive forklifts, you know, bad things happen, like the power almost being cut off and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like Swerve is on the forklift pallet and he jumps off of it, does the stomp thing. Willow Nightingale and Powerhouse Hobbs do spine buster spots, and Willow like pulls down her overalls to reveal a big black and jacked shirt, you know, Hobbs shirt, and that got a big reaction from the crowd. And I was like, okay, honestly, that's really cool. Like it was all really cool. Staple guns get involved. Swerve gets stapled on his fucking tongue, like right on the tongue, and it stays there. He even shows it off later in the match. These people are insane. Wrestlers are not like us. Kenny Omega's flying off of balconies, and there's so much stuff going on. Like I'm looking at all my notes, and I'm like, that's just. Gabe Kidd shows up. Gabe Kidd shows up to save the match. You know, Mox eats a muscle buster and he's in a Coquina clutch, but Gabe Kidd runs in to save the match. He was the hired gun for this one here. Then Kenny Omega eats a lot of shit in this match, and Joe saves it, and everyone is so amped up, and it's all so great. And Mark Briscoe shows up. He was just locked away in an ambulance, taken to a hospital 2 hours earlier. I guess they cleared him and they brought him back because he comes out and he's still fucking caked in all the blood that poured through him, from him, I should say, in the stretcher match earlier. And he runs in to take care of Gabe Kidd, and it's phenomenal. And this is wild. This is fun. This is amazing, and it's brutal, and the spots are great. And Swerve Strickland has his new shoes, his new shoe deal. He's got his shoes filled up with tacks, pulling one out of the Young Bucks, pulling a page out of the Young Bucks' book of tricks, something. And he does the double stomp on Nick for the win. I think it's Nick, because the Death Riders are all in the ambulance. Like it does it. So much chaos, but so much fun. and they nailed it perfectly. Like, it felt like the old one, like the first one did. It was exactly in that same vibe. Everyone worked hard and everyone had their spots. Everyone had a moment to shine here. It was all great. This was a blast. And it was fun. And sometimes you just need wrestling to be this chaotic and crazy. When they start with the split screen with the 4 cameras, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. And just keep it like that the entire way. I don't give a shit. And I said it like, I said it years ago at the first Anarchy in the Arena when they were doing the chaos and whatnot. I was like, this reminds me of, some ECW matches where the camera would be constantly cutting back and forth from things happening throughout the arena because you had people all the way in one part of the ECW arena fighting and, other people on the other, over on this side doing that. It's like, it's just, crazy. You want that kind of chaos. That feeling was back. I loved it. And I'm still thinking about this match with a smile. It's a match of the year candidate. In my opinion, let's slap a full 5 stars on that. I think it really was that good. It really was that good. We are creeping on 90 minutes. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer to 90 minutes and into this review, and we've only talked about 3 matches. With 3 great matches, don't get me wrong. They were worth it. But, okay, let's get back into a sequence here. Let's go back to the start of the show. We already talked about Hayter versus Monet. So that would lead us to FTR defeating Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Garcia. This was really good. This was another really good match on this card. And I'm looking through my notes here. There we go. Yeah, look, I mean, this was underscored by FTR's great heel work. I don't know why they're not heels all the time. I don't know why we suffered through, smiling Dax Harwood and all of this for so long, and him talking about his beautiful daughter and all that, which you should talk about. You should talk about with your children with praise, but at some point, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You remember that spot, right? But this was really good. I thought this had a good old school feel to it too, because Dax and Cash are doing old school heel shit. Like, of course they are. That's their whole gimmick, doing old school things. But now they're really leaning into the heel stuff, and they're absolutely tremendous at it. Another really physical match here. I thought Nigel looked great for a guy who never wrestles, essentially. I thought he looked tremendous. And FTR beats Garcia and Nigel clean. They do a shatter machine, if I'm not mistaken, on Nigel on the floor, and he does not get up from that, right? He does not return from that. He's dead on the floor, which is fine. It makes sense. It's a guy who never wrestles anymore, right? He's a commentator. It makes sense that he hits a finisher and he's kaput, right? So FTR go and focus on Garcia, and they get him into a sharpshooter, and he passes out in the sharpshooter, which I still think it's stupid. Like, passing out from the sharpshooter, like, come on now. A couple of weeks ago on stream, I think we had a little gas at Miyu Yamashita tapping out to the sharpshooter, against Natalia, right? Yeah. And I'm like, what? Not everyone is Steve Austin. Like, do people when they pass out in sharpshooters, which is a move that affects your legs for some reason, like, has nothing to do with your airflow, blood circulation, it just inflicts pain on your legs. How do you pass out from that? And do people when they get locked in there, see themselves like Steve Austin, you know, you know what I'm talking about? And they're like, I'm going to pass out like Steve Austin did. Yeah, but Steve Austin like wrestled for like 70 million minutes before reaching that. He was bleeding. It was more than just like, here's a sharpshooter. I don't know. It's weird. He could have just tapped. He honestly could have just tapped. Passing out, it's like, it's very harebrained. But then again, pro wrestlers are a little harebrained as well. So, you know, maybe, I guess the psychology all makes sense all of a sudden. Clean win for FTR. No shenanigans. Great work here. I like the story leading into this, by the way. I like the build, you know, to Nigel being protective of Tony Schiavone. You know, everyone likes Tony. It's a great way to get some babyface heat. Everyone loves Tony, so that was great. I just wonder about Daniel Garcia in the company in 2025. Like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on. Like I have not been impressed with Daniel Garcia. His booking is what I'm trying to say. I have not been impressed with it since his return. Not since his return, since he re-signed with AEW last fall. You know, I still think him winning the TNT title was not a good move, taking it off of Jack Perry. It was particularly not a good move if he was immediately thrown into the Continental Classic, because he never had a real opportunity to, you know, get some title defenses in and whatnot. I know it happened after the C2, but after the C2, he's already established to be a bit of a schmuck. You know, he didn't have, he didn't have this impressive winning record. You know, he didn't come off looking, he didn't walk out of the Continental Classic looking better. And I'm not going to say worse, but he didn't come off feeling like a champion either, because, and yet he is a champion. And then he got a few defenses, got really embroiled into this Adam Cole thing. And, you know, Adam Cole at this point, you know, we'll talk about him in a bit, but you know, he is the dude's body falling apart. What's going on? Maybe he should really just stick to, you know, doing the Twitch thing and you know, playing Halo, playing Elden Ring, you know. But look, we might touch on this later. I want to keep the focus on Daniel Garcia here. Look, I don't know. What does this do for Dan Garcia? But you know, the story here was clearly to continue to put FTR over as tag champs, or not as tag champs, just as a great tag team, right? Moving forward. Dan Garcia, I don't know what he gets out of this. I don't know why it was him that had to be in this position, other than the story makes sense. But this is a guy who is in a very quick, he is very, very much in a spot where he needs some rehabilitation. And I know he's young and so on and so forth, and you can use all these arguments, but Garcia was in a much better spot in this company a couple of years ago. And now it's like, I don't know, he's lost a lot of his luster. Maybe Tony has stopped caring, which is weird because you just re-signed them. I don't know. I like Dan Garcia. I like him a lot. I really, 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 really do. And I'm still a believer. I'm not out on the guy, but this booking has not been impressive. To be continued, I guess. Good match, 3.5 stars. I thought this was a lot of fun. It was really good. Ricochet defeated Mark Briscoe in the, let's call it what it was, the ambulance match. You know, when they broke down, I think it was on Collision last week, when they broke down the rules and was like, they're gonna have to put the guy in a gurney and put him into an ambulance. I'm like, okay, this is not a stretcher match. This is not a stretcher match. This is an ambulance match. And I groaned audibly, because when is the last time we saw a really good ambulance match? Well, we saw one there. Look, the last ambulance match I saw, it was Skinny Creed brother versus not the Stevenson brother that is not Gable in NXT. That's the last ambulance match I saw, and it was bad. Wasn't it that like at that Halloween Havoc that had stipulations on everything and they were all bad. It was just a horrible show. I think that's what it was. It doesn't look, I'm off track. This was not bad. This was actually really fucking fun. This was a blast. What are we even talking about? This was so much fun. Like completely out of nowhere. And I'm going to tell you, I am continuing my ongoing, let me say that again. I am continuing to press forward with my agenda to get Mark Briscoe to win a fucking title, singles title in AEW, not Ring of Honor, in AEW. Look, you're not going to make him world champion. I can get that. But Mark Briscoe has too much of a crowd connection, works too hard and too well every single time he goes out to wrestle to not give this dude his due. It's insane to me. This is a guy the crowd loves. They love Mark Briscoe. And Mark Briscoe gives all of himself in every match he gets into. And this one, he gave so much blood on top of everything that he usually gives. He gave so much blood. Like, we broke the Muta scale here. It was disgusting and awesome. Like that spot where they're at the gurney and Ricochet, tosses the little mattress cushion thing on the gurney, tosses it off, and he grabs Briscoe and he starts ramming his head onto the gurney, and the gurney is a bright yellow. And as he's doing it, like there's just blood splatter with every contact. I'm watching a horror movie. This is it's such a great visual. And then Briscoe does a froggy bow off the top rope through the table on the floor, which is crazy. This is a feud that had so much violence that didn't require so much violence. You know what I mean? Like this wasn't like a blood feud. Like if you could have fooled me here telling me watching this match, you could have fooled me if you told me, oh yeah, these guys have been feuding. It's been a blood feud for months. I would have bought into it, but it's not. This was crazy. It was so good. Mark Briscoe, man, he is a fucking treasure. And Ricochet is so good. So good in this role. He has been, look, he comes into the company, it's a little tentative, but then they pivot into this incredible heel turn where he's just the most dislikable, detestable heel out there. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. He has embraced everything about being in AEW, the role that he has, the heel persona he has. WWE was the only promotion that couldn't make a star out of Ricochet. Hell, even Lucha Underground made a star out of him. And WWE was the only place in which he came off and felt like a geek. Everywhere else he's ever been, star, except the place that makes stars, right? It's the star-making factory, that WWE. I gave this a 4.25 star. That's how much I was hooting and hollering. I was popping out of my seat. That Mark Briscoe froggy bow, fuck off. Holding my head like this when the blood is splattering all over the yellow gurney. It was just tremendous. Tremendous stuff. This was your plunder match, essentially, right? Well, outside of Anarchy in the Arena, but it's still, and as great as it was, it didn't take away from Anarchy in the Arena. Just masterful stuff. It's so good. The Hurt Syndicate defeated the Sons of Texas. This was my 3-star match. The worst match of the night. I don't know what you want from me. This was the, if you like your stories laid on thick, this was the sports entertainment match of the night, where MJF is trying to interfere on behalf of the Hurt Syndicate to try and put away the Sons of Texas faster, using the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And Bobby Lashley's having none of it, but they all reconcile. It was all, they're all buddies nonetheless, all walking around and being happy and whatnot. I don't know. Clearly, Bob took exception to MJF trying to take some shortcuts here. Bobby Lashley wants to do things the right way, clearly. So yeah, this is essentially what this match was for. You could have slotted this on any Dynamite or Collision, and it would have had the same impact. Yeah, I don't know what you want from me. I don't know. There's a barricade spot because it's Bobby Lashley, and of course, if I never see one again, that'll be too soon. It's fine though. Like, Sammy Guevara eats some Shelton Benjamin kicks and takes the loss here. If you discount the Wrestle Dynasty show in Japan from earlier this year, if you discount that, because he was on the pre-show on top of that, Sammy Guevara has not been on an AEW pay-per-view since 2023. Since World's End 2023 in December 2023. So that was his big return to pay-per-view. And I don't know. It's funny, like, Dustin and Sammy and commentary put over a lot the fact, it's like we're originals, we're OGs, we're day oneers, right? Is what they're like. And I'm like, yeah, boy, oh boy. Like, this promotion's passing you by. Like, Sammy Guevara is starting to feel like he's from another era, right? I mean, Dustin, that's his whole thing. But Sammy, where does Sammy fit in AEW in 2025? I dare ask the question, and I'd be open to some responses. I know he's still hanging around Ring of Honor. I'm not saying, suddenly he's back, on the AEW roster. I get it. But it's like, just think about it. He was on an AEW pay-per-view. This was a guy who in 2023 was challenging for the World Championship. This is a guy who's always been involved, like he's always been involved in significant matches. He's been in those stadium stampede things, and he was in the Jericho Appreciation Society, at all that thing with Jericho. Like, it's all, he's not a guy who was not pushed, is what I'm saying. It's not like Scorpio Sky, who was pushed that one time and was like, okay, that's pretty much it. Sammy was a push commodity. With the matches with Cody and the TNT title and all that, like, and now you're like, where does he fit in 2025? Interesting. So yeah, 3 stars. Moving on. Kazuchika Okada defeated Mike Bailey to retain the Continental Championship. This was great. Like, this was great. Like, I have the impression that Kazuchika Okada likes Speedball Mike Bailey because he came to work. It's a discussion amongst a lot of us used to watch, who watch a lot of New Japan and who watched a lot of Okada's tenure there. There's a lot of times in AEW that he just shows up and he doesn't really put in the effort. He doesn't like work. But at Double or Nothing, he was there to work. He put his working boots on and he was tremendous. He sold his ass off for Mike Bailey, who is not only landing all the hits. If you've seen a lot of Mike Bailey matches, you see a lot of the same patterns, and this is not a knock. Every wrestler has patterns, right? That's fine. But Speedball him as well. He was getting a little creative. He was pulling out things, and we're like, oh, okay, this is good, or at least doing this, but in this sequence, and this is kind of surprising because he usually does, this after doing that, and so on and so forth. Just tremendous stuff, and of course that incredible near fall, that 2.999 kick out by Kazuchika Okada. Speedball goes for the Ultimo Weapon. He's in the air, and he gets anti-aired out of the way by a beautiful Okada drop kick, who hits the Rainmaker for the win. This was a tremendously well-worked match. Speedball so far has acclimated himself wonderfully to AEW. His work has been impeccable. He's been great. And Okada, once again, shows us that when it's time to work, he's going to work. And this was clearly time. Like I said, I think he might have had a little, I think he has a little, a natural liking of Speedball, which helps out, unquestionably helps, right? And look, and I don't have a problem with it because it brought out some really good stuff from old Kazu here, so I don't have an issue. This was really good. Okada is one of the greatest wrestlers ever, and I can only hope look, the path that a lot of people see set out for him is a rematch with one of his oldest rivals, in Kenny Omega, and to do that at All In, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. I want to see big match Okada again. I need to see him again. I need to see that level of Okada that made me fall in love with him. Like we saw him at the finals of the Continental Classic. I thought he was spectacular. And this was not the same level of spectacle, but he was great here too. An excellent match. But I miss like big time, big match Okada. And I hope that's where we're going for. And I hope we get more of that Okada. Less complacent, more aura, more big time Okada. Jesus, that's all. It encompasses so much when I put it that way. So hopefully we're on the right path here. Or maybe he'll just wrestle like 10 times this year. And I don't know. What was this? What did we say? What did we say for this one? 4.25? 4.25. Is that what we said? I can't find my notes. 4.25. That's right. Toni Storm defeated Mirina Shirakawa to retain the AEW World Women's title. I thought this was very good. Kind of over-delivered according to my expectations of Mina. I like Mina enough. I don't think she's like this tremendous worker. She's a perfectly fine pro wrestler. She's good. That's fine. But I don't think like Toni Storm is a great pro wrestler, whereas Mina Shirakawa is not a great pro wrestler. I think she's a good pro wrestler. And they were able to manage to bring out something really, really good here, with Mina focusing on the knee to, of course, work the figure 4 into this, which I thought was really clever and good, which I thought was a perfect plan, and it worked fantastically. And Toni of course was very giving here. So they're pals. They get along really, really well. I don't know if you noticed at the end, they get along really, really well. Look, the outcome here was never in doubt, right? But this was a good story. I think the predictability of it would maybe hampered maybe some drama that could have come into it. But overall, to me, this is a match that over delivered and was quite good, considering everything, considering all of the situations that were set up here around it. I thought it was fine. Storm Zero here, after some close near falls, gets the win, secures the win, and it was confirmed after that we are getting Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné at All In, which is a tremendous, big money match, big time match. The two biggest women stars in the company, probably that the company has ever had at one time. We could maybe argue Britt Baker for a while, but two stars as big, both title holders. This is big time, and we've got a while yet to build this. This is great. This is good. It's good. Good stuff. 3.5 stars for the match, by the way. And the last match, then if I'm not mistaken, right, it was Anarchy in the Arena after that. Correct? Yes. It was indeed Anarchy in the Arena after that, which leads us to Josh Alexander, Konosuke Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher defeating the Paragon team of Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong. This was supposed to be a cool down. I don't know. Why didn't we just go into the main event after Anarchy? I don't know. You know, this thing that exists in North American booking where you absolutely need a cool down. It's like, I don't know. Do you? Could have continued on the same. I don't know. I think you could have continued on the same high. I don't know why we were so prudent here. And this match ruled. Like, this match was fantastic. As far as cool down matches go, like, I was expecting this to be a lot of fun. But this was really, really, really great. Like, this was such a barn burner, physical, hard fought match between a bunch of super talented workers. And I'm looking at Roderick Strong go here. I'm like, Christ, this guy will never suck. This guy will never be bad. He will just get older and will always be better. I can't believe how great he still is. And then you have, you know, Takeshita, who you all know I love, and Fletcher, who is great, and Josh Alexander as well is great, and Kyle O'Reilly, and then you have Adam Cole, who stood out here as really being the worst worker of the bunch. Like, you had 5 phenomenal workers in this match, and then you had Adam Cole come in and do his things, and you're like, ooh. I mean, it wasn't glaring. He wasn't like awful, but you could feel like there's a notch, a full notch difference between the work of the 5 other guys in the ring and Cole's. And it made me wonder, and I started wondering, is Adam Cole physically shot? Is he hurt? Is this Adam Cole now moving forward? I just don't know. I don't know. But this was good. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this tremendously. I thought it was I thought, big moves, guys throwing knees, chops, Roderick Strong not holding back, of course. It was great. I love this. And I'm glad that Don Callis family ended up on the show because they're a great unit. You know, it's been a while since we've had a great manager-led stable in pro wrestling. You know, like the Heenan family, yes, but like the Dangerous Alliance and stuff like that. You know, it's been a while, and Don Callis fits this perfectly. Now he's got this huge unit with a bunch of people in it, and it's just tremendous. It's so good. Shows up all the time on the card because all of his dudes are doing shit. I'm like, it's great. I love it. I love it. So Brainbuster by Kyle Fletcher on Kyle O'Reilly to get the win. Therefore, Kyle O'Reilly can no longer use the first name Kyle. And then after the match, Brody King comes out with Tomohiro Ishii and the most random appearance of Hiroshi Tanahashi ever. Because they come in to sort of chase the Don Callis family away. Tanahashi showing up, I'm like, okay. Yeah, got a good reaction. People were excited to see him, which is good. They knew who he was. It's like, what the fuck is this? Which, of course, leads us all to believe that he was in town to set up plans for Forbidden Door with Tony. I guess, Arizona's not too far in to fly. Like clearly they had some meetings. They were to have a sit down and chat things up for what's coming up in August. So otherwise, and Tony was probably like, do you want to show up on the show just as a nice surprise for the fans? And Hiroshi was probably like, yeah, so let's do it, for the fans. Just the weirdest, most random, like the most random showing up. Yeah, get hyped for Forbidden Door. The Aces. Anyway, there you go. Then we had the pre-show matches, right? Where Anna Jay and Harley Cameron defeated Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Just want to point out, both of these tag teams have had matching tag team gear. And we know that the women's tag team titles are made and they're ready to go. Tony's just like sitting on them for a reason. That might be coming sooner than we think. And then we had it was an okay match. 8-man tag team match then also on the pre-show. AR Fox Bandito, Hologram and Commander, aka Los Titanes del Air, defeated Crew and RPG Vice, which are, of course, Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. That was a lot of fun. Let the baby faces fly around, do their big crazy spots, crowd pleaser, get the crowd into it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Good little pre-show. I don't have many more notes other than that. Just a great show. Double or Nothing 2025. Just from top to bottom. Really no big missteps. Nothing that makes your skin crawl. Nothing that you're like, ugh, we're going into this, 20-minute, these next 3 matches are all going to suck or whatever. Nothing. This is all quality, premium cuts, just great stuff. A tremendous show. All-time great show. One of the best pay-per-views you'll watch this year. Yeah, if you haven't already, but I'm pretty sure you have at this point. There you go. That's the review. And that about does it for this week's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you did enjoy, well, you can always, and if you haven't already, leave a like, a review, a rating, and all that stuff. I'd appreciate it tremendously, and it shows that I do a good job once in a while. I will be back on Thursday for another AEW Dynamite review. We'll be back on streaming on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, talking about all sorts of stuff popping up in pro wrestling, and be back for another Mr. Warren Hayes Show next week, probably. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you everyone for being here. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.